Hello, and welcome to Menu Talk with Pat and Bret. I am your co-host, Bret Thorn, Senior Food and Beverage Editor of Nation's Restaurant News and Restaurant Hospitality.
And I'm Pat Cobe, Senior Menu Editor at Restaurant Business. Welcome.
How you been doing, Pat?
How are you doing?
Tired, pretty tired, but good. We're recording this on a Friday. You guys won't be able to listen to it until Tuesday, but we are recording it on a Friday, so I'm ready for the weekend. It's been quite a busy week. We've been looking at a bunch of Fabby Award entries that we can't tell you about because it's all secret. But, these are awards that are for food and beverage items that are being exhibited at the National Restaurant Show in May. And Pat and I are judges, and they've all been shipped to the office, and we've been trying a lot of things that
Definitely. There are 90, I think, that we're trying this year.
Yeah, it was a
over
lot.
Just like 2 weeks. So it's really a lot of tasting.
Yes, but we have it delivered to the office, and so some of our colleagues get to give feedback too, and they love free stuff, so it's nice. It's nice. And there are so many new menu items right now, aren't there, Pat?
Yeah, it seems as soon as the calendar flipped from February to March, they just like rushed in. So, and I've noticed especially a lot of sandwiches. I don't know why sandwiches are so busy or big right now, but I mean, Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings has a chicken parm sandwich. Let's see, Chick-fil-A has a new smokehouse barbecue bacon sandwich, or actually it's back from last year.
And 3 versions. You can get classic, spicy, and cold. So that's...
And then Potbelly has something called a barnyard sandwich that was on their secret menu, their underground menu. So you have to kind of know about it, but it sounds really meaty. It has meatballs and roast beef and I think bacon too. So meat can rejoice about that one.
Yeah, it's a variation on their rec, which back when our offices were near a Potbelly, I would get the rec fairly frequently, but it has bacon and meatballs in addition to everything else on the rec. So it's a whole thing. And there were some new sauces too, right? Buffalo Wild Wings came out with some new sauces.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else did too. Who was it?
Well, I also noticed a lot, it seems like breakfast items are really big this week too. Like, I think you wrote about Bojangles and their new brunch waffle. So they're trying to get into the brunch scene a little bit with a chicken fillet on a brunch on a berry waffle with some kind of berry glaze on top.
And Denny's has some new waffles and pancakes and French toast with salted caramel banana on them. Yes, it's Hardee's that has the new sauce. They have a new Carolina Gold barbecue sauce made with Duke's mayonnaise. They've highlighted, called out Duke's, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting because they're not really located in the South.
Well, they're sort of South and Midwest, but Duke's is really Southern. So
yeah.
And Bojangles also, their tartar sauce is Duke's tartar sauce. That's on their Bojangler, which they bring back for every Lent. And there's a lot of Lent items.
Definitely a lot of Lent items. Yeah, we talked about a few last week, but even more this week.
Yeah, a ton. And, it's all fish and shrimp. White fish, usually Alaska, pollock, or flounder, and shrimp, usually fried.
Right.
And, happens every year. Does it count as news if it happens every year? I guess it depends.
Well, I was surprised that everyone like a lot of quick service chains are calling out Alaska cod and Alaska pollock. Those are not, the kinds of fish that pollock is pretty common, but cod and flounder and their wild caught are really not as common in fast food, but they're happening at Taco John's and at churches, and it's really interesting.
And some of them are doing something that, like, I'm not Catholic or Episcopalian or any of the other types of Christians who observe Lent, but as I understand it, on Fridays, chicken is not allowed either, and yet they're introducing like surf and turf with chicken and fish, which
Right. Well, I guess it's an option.
yeah, sure, yeah, plenty of people do not observe Lent, and then I find this just such a funny irony that St. Patrick's Day also always happens during Lent. And here in the Northeast, obviously, there are a lot of Irish Americans. And so most years, probably all years, but I can't say for sure, the Archdiocese of New York and Boston grant special dispensations that it's okay on St. Patrick's Day to get loaded and maybe eat corned beef. Although St. Patrick's Day is on a Monday this year, so I guess it doesn't matter.
Right. I
Along,
didn't know that about the special dispensation. That's really interesting.
yeah, I don't know where I learned that, and I looked it up again today to make sure it was true. And it just cultures are quirky, and that's how
Yeah.
things are. In
Well, we
fact,
can't forget about Pi Day, too. That's like a big celebration.
for sure, March 14th, because 3.14 is the beginning of the universal constant pi. And before that, I just learned this because I don't have kids, but March 10th, which of course is MAR10, is Mario Day, if you happen to
Oh,
Mario
cool.
Brothers, big for Nintendo people. I just learned that from my editor in chief, Sam Okas, and that begins a weekend. The weekend before St. Patrick's Day. Sometimes it's called St. Practice Day because people want to like build up their alcohol tolerance for St. Patrick's Day. But this year, as we've discussed, since St. Patrick's Day is on a Monday, it's just going to be a whole weekend of my goodness stuff. Then there are other kind of small holidays, I'll call them, like Pi Day.
Mm-hmm.
March 16th is Steve Austin Day, professional wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
He has a slogan, Austin 316, which is seems like a very sacrilegious attack on John 316, which is an important quote about, well, biblical quote. I don't need to get into
Mm-hmm.
details. Then we have
But it's also my older son's birthday, so that's worth celebrating too.
that's definitely worth celebrating. That's wonderful. And I'm glad that he was born. Then we get some other holidays in April. We have Cannabis Day, 420,
Mm-hmm.
followed by Earth Day, 422. And of course, May 4th is Star Wars Day, because
Right.
May the 4th be with you.
And actually, Sunday, March 9th is National Meatball Day.
Oh, well,
Yep.
so
We forgot that. We didn't want to leave that one out.
no, I mean, every day is a National Food Day of some sort. And I think we've discussed this before that, I just find them so dumb, but they work.
They do work.
So, you
Well,
know,
I think Pi Day is really interesting this year because it used to be like a lot of the pizza chains would come out with specials on Pi Day. But now BJ's is doing a Pi Day promotion with their Pizookie, which really isn't even a pie, but they're just latching on to Pi Day too.
I missed that one. Are they selling them for $3.14 or something?
Well, I don't think they're selling them that cheap, but I think they're offering a number of their Pizookies, and you can get on Pi Day.
Yeah, and a pizookie is a cookie in a skillet, usually with ice cream on top and different sauces. And I've never actually had one, but
No, I haven't either, but I've had something similar at other places, but
sure, yeah,
not at BJ's.
I haven't had the pizookie. I remember we talked about the pizookie last year. Oh, and we forgot April Fool's Day, which is obviously April 1st,
Yeah.
when BJ's did introduce the pizookie for a day. So will they do it again this year? Did they even do it last year, or was it a joke? I don't know.
Well, I'm sure we'll get a lot of jokes this year, food jokes. They're always fun.
Yes, yeah, you got to pay attention on April 1st because you don't want to report on something that is false. And sometimes they do a pretty good job at threading the needle.
Yeah, and I'm super gullible, so I usually believe it.
Well, and the way things are so weird these days, it's hard to tell, what what, 3, 4? No, it was before the pandemic that Sonic had pickle slushes. So, and they were, they sold pretty well and stuff. So many different things out there that, would have been crazy a few years ago. Like dirty sodas. Who else
Right.
is out with dirty sodas today or, this week? Uh, Denny's. Denny's is doing slammin' sodas. You get a choice of Dr. Pepper or Coke or Sprite with strawberry flavor added. Only the Sprite has the strawberry flavor, and then it has sweet cream and lime. And
Right.
like if Denny's is doing it, it's mainstream, and Sonic already has it. And
Right.
of course,
Yeah.
this is started by Swig, the little or rapidly growing soda chain out of Utah.
Now there's also Cool Sips, which is a local New York dirty soda chain that I just happened to stumble across when I was in Rockefeller Center, and I didn't even know about it. So they're not really publicizing it too much yet because I think there are only 2 locations, but they do the same kind of dirty sodas.
And you could make them at home if you want. Although I guess since we are a restaurant podcast, we shouldn't promote that. We should promote going out to restaurants and having a dirty soda.
Yeah.
What else is going on these days, Pat?
Well, let's talk about the restaurateur and chef that you interviewed this week.
That's a good idea because she is delightful. It's Inat Admoni, who is one of the very early proponents of Israeli cuisine in the United States, which has now become pretty widespread as far as cuisines go. And her Balabusta here in New York has been around for a really long time. And then a few months ago, she opened Moondog in Brooklyn, in East Williamsburg, which is a listening bar and also serves a variety of different foods, mostly Mexican, though. Uh,
Oh,
and as we discussed last week with your guests, Middle Eastern and Mexican flavors actually go together pretty well. And so Einat Admoni and I discussed this, but I also asked her about how Israeli cuisine is different from other Middle Eastern cuisines. And she had some really interesting observations about that. Basically, apart from the fact that it's a different kind of melting pot because you have Jews from Europe and Jews from North Africa and from the Middle East, Iraq and Iran and so on. But all of those Jewish communities had their own traditions because Jewish dietary laws are a little bit different from Muslim dietary laws. So, for example, a lot of Persian dishes have yogurt. In Jewish dietary law, you can't mix dairy and meat, and so there is no yogurt. I was actually talking to a food writer and long, long ago former colleague of yours, Andrea Strong, who
mm-hmm.
is a Persian American Jew, and she makes that crinkly, crunchy rice dish.
Yeah. I loved her blog when she described how she made it. That was really cool.
Yeah, and as she explained to me, when we went to the opening of The View, which I think we talked about a week or two ago, she explained that she and her mother and probably grandmother line the bottom of the pan with potatoes, whereas if you're a Muslim Iranian, you would add yogurt, but can't do that if you're Jewish. So there are Israeli dishes that have come down through the years following Jewish dietary tradition, and then it all gets mixed up and stirred together in the melting pot that is Israel. So
Right.
we had a really good conversation, and I hope you all enjoy it. Hello, Einat Admoni. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Glad to hear it. You are the chef of and owner of Balabusta and a new place called Moondog that
Mm,
just opened, what, a couple months ago?
Yeah, 2 months, maybe a little bit more around.
So why don't you tell everybody about it? I went to a nice party you threw there, and I ought to be perfectly honest, I forgot that you were the chef. So I was like, why is this hummus so good? And then I remembered why.
Not because of my brother.
No, no, but you opened it with your brother, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes, I did.
and it's a listening bar as well as a restaurant, and
Yes, it's mostly listening bar. I want to create some food that it's easy and friendly and tasty and inexpensive. So I collab actually both of some of my favorite cuisine, which is Mexican and Middle East. So it needs to always work together. I did a lot of collaboration in the past with Mexican chef, and it's always there is a lot of similar notes on the flavor and the chilies on the so it was always was a easy combination for me.
I hadn't really thought of Israeli and Mexican being that related. But then again, there are a lot of different Mexican cuisines, and Israeli cuisine obviously is a fusion from
So many.
Eastern Europe and yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, and I'm Yemenite and Persian, so especially when we talk about my Yemenite roots, there is a lot of chilies there. There is a lot of spicy and salsas and sauces made with fenugreek, and so there is a lot of connection. I found that the schog that I grew up are very similar to salsa verde, and so there is for me there is a lot of connection.
And as I understand it, zhug is actually a Yemenite Israeli invention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, herbaceous, kind of like a spicy chimichurri, I guess.
Yeah, it is the chimichurri have acid. So now I have in Moondog something called schugichurri. So I mix basically the schug and the chimichurri. So just adding to schug some different acid and parsley. Usually I don't put parsley in schug. So I finish it with chopped parsley and put some different kind of acid and make it schugichurri.
That's neat. And what do you put that on tacos or what?
We
What do
put
you?
it with the empanadas. We have a beef empanada and then like more Argentinian style. And then we have like corn, mozzarella, and feta empanada. And both of them going with sfogliaturi, which work very well together.
Yeah, I sampled both of those at the opening party. They were delicious.
Thank you.
And the cocktails were good too. I was surprised that the one was called what, the Jaffa Martini or something like that.
Yeah, the Jaffa, Old Jaffa.
Yes, and I didn't get the Jaffa connection because when I think of Jaffa,
I think we talk about it over there.
yeah,
It was you that we actually talk about it. I try to find a connection. Sometimes when you give name, the connection is I don't know. I will find one and I let you. I'm gonna invent some great story and I'm gonna get back to you on it.
wonderful. I mean, because a story will completely make a menu item. People
Yeah.
love those stories. It was good, and I also really love the Turkish coffee martini that I thought was going to be too sweet, like an espresso martini, but it was delicious.
Yeah, it's not too sweet. Yeah, I like it too.
A lot of cardamom. So tell me about your brother in the listening bar aspect of Moondog.
My brother been a true musician for all his life. So my brother, this kind of ideas came a long time ago. I kind of, as somebody that opened many restaurants in my life, was hesitate. I wasn't sure I want to open another place, but I said if he's going to take control and do the operation, I'm definitely going to help him. I really like the concept. I think summertime, especially when we have such a big courtyard over there with so much potential to do great collabs with chefs all around the country, that would be a really fun space to hang. So I can't wait for better weather here in New York to kind of bring in my French chefs to cook with. So that's our plan right now.
Yeah, it is a huge space. I mean, there's all sorts of great spaces for events. It's in East Williamsburg, right?
Yeah. With
And
Bushwick is Williamsburg. We also have a speakeasy on the back that people cannot see. They have two different entrances, and we plan to kind of use it later. We're going to renovate in the next few months. So we're going to have another room for 15 to 20 people in the back, plus the courtyard, which contain another probably 100 people. And over there, we can do so many different things.
so why were you hesitant to open another restaurant? As you said, you've opened a lot of them.
Because I have a very hard belief in New York anymore. I'm sorry, with business. It's very, very tough. It's very hard to make money. You're working so hard for almost nothing. Your margin is so tight. You need to be very smart with a lot of experience to make it happen. It's tough. It's just too tough. There is other opportunity for chefs like me to do and create revenue that is not necessarily in the restaurant space.
For sure. And I'm sure our audience who are restaurant operators would love to know what some of those other opportunities are. So what are other approaches that you take to making money?
So there is a lot of things I'm doing. I'm doing some consultant. I'm working with Cook Unity, which is a big company that doing packaging food that have many different chefs, celebrity chef and all kind of chefs that come in and doing that food. And I have a 6 different market with Cook Unity right now. And that's, I think, a main income right now. It's not restaurant. It's project like that. I do not a lot of licensing because I'm scared. My reputation is something that I think is the most important things, always been. I do a lot of like panels and events and demos, kind of appearances and a little bit TV, a little bit, yeah, there is others. There is so always like different stuff that come along and helping to stay above surface in New York.
Hey, are you still involved in Taim, or did you just found it and then move on?
More than founded, I operated for many, 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 many years, around 15 years before I let it go. I'm not in operation now at all. No.
Okay. You're allowed to move on and do different things, but you still have Balabusta, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
how's it doing?
Good. Good. Balabusta is open in 2010. We have like it starts so well, and then we have some like years that was tough. It's a restaurant in New York, and I'm very excited that it's still open after 15 years, and that's achievement for me. To stay open for 15 years in New York City, it's a huge achievement. And
Absolutely.
and with that, like I need to nonstop, even though because when I opened Balabusta, it was maybe 2, 3 other Israeli chefs or Israeli restaurant in all New York City. You wouldn't find much people that understand this food or create this food. So it's very different now when there is like so many Middle Eastern restaurants. And for me, I always feel like I'm very strong in that food. So I can always introduce new things. I can always show different stuff. And that's what's the most exciting for me. It's like, okay, we're going to do, and I'm doing a new event. I'm going to do on March 7th, we're going to do a Kabbalat Shabbat, which is like preparing before Shabbat. And I really like it because I want to make it a very a kind of inclusive kind of event for several hours. I brought a Moroccan band to come and play here. I'm going to make some Moroccan food. We're doing some traditional blessing without the extreme religious attached to it, which I think would be a lot of fun. But yeah. So this we're doing, we nonstop creating stuff. We're doing, it's not easy, but we're here.
Well, and it's true that you are, definitely a leader and one of the early sort of pioneers in the United States of Israeli cuisine. How would you describe Israeli cuisine as being different from other Middle Eastern cuisines?
So we're saying the difference between. So first, the Israeli cuisine is obviously it's a melting pot of over 80 different kind of cultures and people that come from all around the world. So we have. I always say there is a lot of different. First, the Jews in Arab country was cooking what they grew up there, but they had to change it. Kosher rules and Shabbat rules. That means they cannot cook over Shabbat from Friday before sunset until Saturday until sunset. So over
After sunset, yeah.
yeah, after. So they cannot cook, so they have to create like a lot of slow cooking dishes. And that kind of dishes is like, I think is what identify a lot of Israeli cuisine. So I think because a lot of the kosher restriction, we have different food. Beside that, we also have like things that been invented in Israel, like things that we grew up and you cannot find it anywhere, and dishes that came from Israel, and ingredients that came from there that it's uniquely, is for, and the big agriculture, like beautiful cherry tomatoes and a lot of like great vegetable. We're very strong with vegetable. So that's something that you will see a lot. So I think when I go to a Middle Eastern restaurant that's not owned by Israelis, it's funny because I still going to see sabich there, which is super Israeli. It's not anything else.
What is that?
Sabich is
Sabich.
sabich. Yeah, that's a sandwich I brought to New York in 2005 with Taim, which you wouldn't see it anywhere else. It's an Iraqi Jewish sandwich they eat usually on Shabbat morning or Saturday morning, which is a brown eggs that they put overnight. It's a lafa, like a flat pita, some scallions. There is amba sauce and eggplant, like fried eggplant that they fried the day before. But then later it became inside the pita with hummus or tahini and amba and eggplant and hard-boiled egg, and it became a legendary dish in Israel. And that's something that you will see but it's completely Israeli dish.
And amba, that's like a red pepper sauce, right?
So, and amba,
Yeah.
it's mango, green mango, and fenugreek, yellow, tangy with a lot of punch. Amba in India, it's mean mango, but Iraqi Jews talking about amba, they talk about the sauce made with some mango and fenugreek, and it's kind of a process of fermentation. It's one of my favorite sauces. It's the same kind of sauces that going to make you stink a little, but it's super healthy for you. So I really like it.
Yeah, I guess I was thinking of like a Macedonian pepper sauce or something with a similar.
No. Amba, it's a green mango and fenugreek chutney.
Green mango. So it's
Super
you said
good.
it's tangy.
And we did in Balabusta, we did amba with fermented apricots in summer, and that was one of the most delicious sauces we did here. So yes, there is a big difference between Israeli cuisine and Middle Eastern. Like my mom is Persian, and have food. Like if I go to a Persian restaurant in New York that's owned by a Muslim Persian, it's completely different because they use a lot of dairy. So when I go to a Persian restaurant, for example, there is a lot of dairy and yogurt. So the food is richer. It's, of course, it's delicious, but I rather my mom food because it's cleaner and don't make me heavy after with all this like dairy, consume a lot of dairy. So it's, you can see it's like, it's on the same notes of a lot of pomegranate and quince and great flavors, but we cook different. We cook completely different because we can add dairy together with a meat. So our rice will never have yogurt mix inside, and a chicken or lamb not going to be soaked in yogurt overnight. So the cooking style is very different.
When I remember, I talked to you about something, I don't know, many years ago, and you talked about how you learned from each other's neighbors. Like you had Libyan neighbors. You tried
I had a Moroccan neighbor. Yeah, she was like a mom to me. So yes, so basically in Israel we said that a close neighbor is much more important than a distant brother, because we always together, our doors always open, we always like it feels like family. It's nothing else. And my mom always, when she make a Persian rice or whatever she make for Shabbat, she always used to take some plates, wrap them, and exchange that with a neighbor. She would bring some couscous and some tagine or whatever she make for Shabbat. There is always exchange. We have exchange like that with other neighbors, but that was a little bit less exciting.
Because Moroccan cuisine also is a very rich, dynamic cuisine, just as Persian. You said you're Persian and Iraqi, right?
A Persian and Yemenite.
Yemenite, right? Sorry.
But my mom was adopted by Iraqi home when she came to Israel from Iran, so she grew up cooking Iraqi food too. So I grew up a lot on Iraqi food. So there is some Iraqi also, regarding food.
And then there are like Russian and Bulgarian influences.
Most of our neighbor was a lot of Holocaust survivors, so it's a lot of Ashkenazi food. So my mom learned to make the best kugel in the neighborhood. I think it was the best one I ever ate. So it was funny because a Shabbat lunch, after my dad used to come from synagogue, the Shabbat was be with a lot of Yemenite dough that we bake overnight, and then it would be kugel next to it. So something completely, it would be very funny Shabbat lunch.
Yeah, it's completely Eastern European. And did you do noodle kugel or potato kugel?
Noodle.
Yeah, my grandmother made one of those. She was a Eastern European Jew, Ashkenazi Jew, and would make noodles with cottage cheese and eggs and cinnamon sugar on top.
I
Mm.
like that. Yeah, I should make that soon. I really like those.
So I mean, there's so much food in Israel. I hadn't thought about the two things that you mentioned, the dairy, which obviously you can't have with meat in according to Jewish law, and also the Shabbat stews, which,
Yeah,
obviously in everyone,
Chulent.
yeah,
Chulent is the first things that come in mind, but we are talking about tons of different braising and mafroum that like then the Tripoli would do, and a lot of like bechabsalk and like all the Tunisian, Tripoli, Moroccan slow cooking, all the tagine, all the like my mom like chorezabzi, things that also take a long time, all that stuff. And then there we have all the like the Yemenite bread, all the Yemenite, like the kubanes that take 12 hours to do a real kubane, it's take overnight. And jachnun, we put it also overnight. So there is a lot of this kind of dishes that basically they learn how to make and create some food for the day after.
yeah, and for our audience, most of whom are not familiar with Jewish law, probably you can't do any work on the Sabbath. So that means you set the fire, you can't touch it. You have to stay away
Yeah.
from sundown on Friday to on Saturday. And so obviously you turn the fire on low and you make a stew
Yeah.
or the other kind of braise.
You can cook over Shabbat, you can just eat up food. So you can start cooking, you can only eat up some food. That's it. And I used to, as a kid, I was a teenager. My parents became very religious, and I was very annoyed. I want to go party. I'm like, oh, now I need to wait until the finish or the Friday night. And it's funny because today, I have two kids, and today I don't keep rules of Shabbat, but I keep the Shabbat dinner and I keep that community and that like tradition that I found that's so unique and so I don't know, uplifting. And I took a lot of stuff from my childhood for today time and for the way I believe, all the great stuff, all the great food, the great, like having at least once good meal once a week with all my friends and family around.
Yeah, I think it's a beautiful custom too. And I was raised as a pretty liberal Jew, but we always had Friday night dinner at my grandmother's home. And it was always great. And she would make a brisket using the Lipton onion soup mix. That is a wonderful way to make brisket, and it was delicious. And she did her kugel, and she would cook her lima beans in the braising liquid of the brisket, and it's delicious food.
Yeah.
I'm a fan. You have Moondog and Balabusta.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to open another restaurant anytime soon. It sounds like.
I might gonna get into a project soon that I can't talk yet. I came with a book in July, a love story actually, an audiobook called Taste of Love, How I Met My Husband. And that's really was fun to actually write. A lot of fun. It was funny and very comic. I kind of dreamed to open a restaurant probably in Austin or Miami, somewhere else that's easier to do business. So that's yeah, with exciting customer, like I think that my food can do so well in like underserved community that not really don't have much Middle Eastern there. But in New York, I always said no, and then something happened, and it's happened. But I don't have any plans at the moment.
No, but the food at Moondog, as you indicated, isn't completely Middle Eastern. Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
Hispanic influence in
yeah,
it. So
yeah,
the whole different thing.
yeah. The flavors are strong. Like I mean, I have the lamb tacos. It's a lamb mole, but the mole is we take a basic mole and we adjust like the spices and the ingredients, and we put baharat inside, which is completely Middle Eastern blend of spice, and that's one of my favorite actually tacos. Then we have shawarma, which completely so we kind of mix. I did fusion before. I did a Spanish restaurant before. I did different things. I always the strength of the flavor and the profile. I think it's mostly Middle East. of course, are going to bring like techniques and like maybe the tortilla. I want the tortilla to be great, but the flavors will have a lot of Middle Eastern take on it.
When I'm just now reminded of two of the most popular Middle Eastern and Mexican dishes are shawarma and tacos al pastor,
Al pastor.
and they're the same.
Yeah.
In fact, I believe introduced to Mexico by Lebanese immigrants too.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And they definitely don't do pork on the stick. They did probably lamb on the stick.
well, that's fun. And as I said, I enjoyed the food. And does it help to sort of be a bar first so you can sell more drinks, which are more profitable usually?
The first month was very tough. We was trying to figure out a lot of different things. It seems like people really like it, and every day it gets busier and busier and busier. I can't wait to have the spring and summer to kind of open the outside and create like a small garden with herbs outside and all the fun stuff. But yes, the focus was on drinks most and foremost. Like the drink is important, and I know how it's hard to make money in a restaurant. The food cost, the ingredients, the it's a lot, and the payroll. Mostly, what restaurants struggle the most in New York City, I think it's the payroll that's so high. And for my kitchen in Balabusta, I need 5 cooks on a night, 4 cooks. In Moondog, I wanted to create a kitchen that don't need more than 1 cook to operate. 1, 2 max if we're really busy. And that was the main goal, is how we can keep a kitchen that is like 1 person can do all of it. It's not too hard. It's already before. It's a lot of braising, a lot of slow cooking, but at the service, 1 person can, and it's working so far.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Einat Edmoni, for taking the time to talk with me.
Thank you.
And I hope we get to do it again soon. And I will see you at Moondog.
All right, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of Menu Talk. Like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Pat Cobe.
And I'm Bret Thorn.
See you next week.